My first guest is Shir Peled. Shir drafted into the Israeli Border Police in 2002, and at just 19 years old became a true trailblazer as one of the first women to serve as an undercover fighter in the IDF's elite counter-terrorism unit, which is pretty much a real-life version of the TV show Fauda. Over a period of 4 years, Shir participated in numerous missions, gathering intelligence and intercepting terrorists, risking her life each time as she infiltrated hostile populations in the West Bank and East Jerusalem. What makes Shir's experience all the more impressive is that she took on this difficult role while facing an extra challenge, the challenge of being among the first women to serve in this all-male environment. Without further ado, let's welcome Shir Peled. Shir, I'm so excited to hear your story.
Hi, Joel. It's exciting to be here.
Great. I'm glad you could join us.
Thanks.
First, tell us a little bit about yourself and also why you decided to go into a combat unit. I know now women, it's more common, but back in 2002 when you drafted, it wasn't so common. So what made you make that choice?
Well, my idea to volunteer for a combat position in the army arose actually from a few things. As a teenager, I grew up in Jerusalem in the hard times of the Second Intifada. One day in my senior year, I went on a bus home, on my way home from school. And as I was walking towards the end of the bus looking for a seat, a suicide bomber exploded right behind the bus that I was on. I think that my life pretty much changed after this incident. And since the army was the next stop for me, I decided to do a meaningful role in the army. And I decided to go for a combat role.
Did you have to convince the army to let you try? Were they open to it? Like, what was the status at that time?
Well, at that time in 2002, there were no combat positions for women. At first, they said no, and I was a stubborn teenager, still am.
We're glad you were.
So I couldn't accept that, and finally I found the Border Police, which opened their gates for women in 1996.
And there were 20 women who tried out for the unit that you eventually would go for, but only 3 were selected, and you were one of the 3. Mm-hmm. So what was the selection process like, and then what was the training like once you got into this very elite secret unit?
Well, actually, it was a tactical decision because it was during the Second Intifada, and the undercover fighters had a hard time to be in the field, in the villages, and the Arab cities because everybody was really on high alert and very suspicious. So the commanders decided, okay, they're not going to dress up as women because they can't really go deeper and to places that no one will suspect them. So we need women to fill this job. I learned how to blend in the field without anybody noticing me or suspecting me. Wow. Yeah, and actually, I think like a tiger in the jungle. To sneak up very quietly on my target and just being invisible.
I want to jump now to the missions themselves. Is there a certain mission that stands out or a particular operation that you won't forget, a memory you can share with us?
Okay, so it was in one of the villages in the West Bank. And it was a big operation. We had to catch 4 armed terrorists that came to make an armed deal in one of the restaurants in the village. Me and my partner that day, our cover story was husband and wife. And our job was to secure a road that leads to the restaurant. And I hear over the radio that the terrorists are already in the restaurant and the deal was done. So everybody's just waiting for the sign, for the signal to go in and do what we came to do. They come out of the restaurant, and then my team, the other undercover fighters, drew out their pistols. The uniform units rushed in to assist us, and helicopters covered the sky. Me and my partner, we're starting walking towards the main force. And then one of the suspects started to run to our direction with a loaded gun in his hand. He, of course, didn't know who we are. And we're moving very slowly towards him. He's like 2 inches from us, and my partner moves in and shoves him to the ground. In this moment, I just drew my gun and aimed it to his head. It was complete silence. I think I never seen anyone in that state of shock in my life. His gun was aimed to me also, but he just threw it because I was an Arab woman, Arab religious woman, pointing a gun to him. And then 2 soldiers came and grabbed him and arrested him. And I just covered my face and disappeared into one of the cars.
Now, here's a little twist, though. I heard you don't speak Arabic.
Not a word.
So how can you infiltrate and do what you do without speaking Arabic?
Well, as I said before, I mean, when we see Fauda or any other show about special forces, we usually see the moment when we draw our guns.
Right.
When everything is exploding and, you know.
The exciting moment.
Yeah, of course. But actually, the exciting moment and the difficult thing is to get there without anybody noticing you. I'm sort of part of, I think, like in the background. Nobody was supposed to approach me. That's actually the job, to know how to blend in very well, and nobody will suspect you. And also, I'm a woman, and in the Arab culture, you don't address women, religious women, in the streets. And if they do, there's a lot of ways to communicate with people without speaing. But I can't tell you, because then I'll have to kill you. So.
And I'm not going to challenge that. Believe me, you've taught me enough. Do you ever meet with young women today who are 18,
yes, of
19?
course.
And do you see a difference between them and the women you drafted with in 2002 in terms of their attitudes towards serving, or maybe the same?
It's the same. They're very enthusiastic. And I think the difference is, in my time, it was very unusual. But
right.
Today, it's a common thing. Almost every other young woman wants to be a fighter today. So it's very important for me to talk to them all the time.
Thank you so much for sharing your time with us today. I could talk with you for hours, but it's been super exciting to hear your story, and I hope we hear more of you, because you're an inspiration for
Thank you so
not just
much.
women in Israel, but all around the world. I really believe so.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Toda rabah. Shir Peled, everyone.